Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Point, where we can just get to the point on a wide variety of topics. I'm JR. This week's conversation is all about financial fitness. It's about budgeting. You might already know that I've made some big changes in my life recently, and I've already paid off credit card debt, refinanced my student loans, and I'm already seeing really great changes. This week, I teamed up with financial expert Justin Larson, who's going to give us some quick and easy tricks on ways that we can build our financial fitness. All right, so check it out. What are some of the basic facts, the tips of what you give anyone that's first getting into budgeting? Like, oh my gosh, I need to save money. What do you tell them to do?
You know, that is one of the most difficult things for people to want to do, is to sit down and figure out, okay, this is how much money I have going in, this is how much money is going out each month, and working out, does that line up, figuring out if there's a little bit extra that people can work on each month to put together in savings. So that's what I always say. Number one budgeting goal for people is to sit down, figure out how much money do I have coming on in each month, how much money is going out, and where is that money going? That's kind of the next step. So is it my required expenses, what we call our non-discretionary expenses, things like your rent, things like food, things like transportation to and from work, kind of just working through what are those expenses, and then figuring out what are my discretionary expenses, what are the things that maybe I don't need every month, but kind of working through what those are and seeing where those numbers kind of match up or don't match up. That's one of the most basic things people can do on an everyday basis.
Why does someone want to save to begin with?
Most basic thing that people need is an emergency fund. So that is something that really everyone should have. A statistic I was actually reading the other day is that over half of people in our country don't have enough saved up to which we say is $1,000 is kind of a benchmark, don't have enough saved up to deal with an $1,000 emergency that pops up. Say your car breaks down. Say you have some other type of appliance breaks down, thing like that. A lot of people in our country just don't have resources to deal with that. And why is that important? It's important because then what do you have to do? Usually pull out the credit card and put it on your credit card. And then you have to pay the interest on that. So building that emergency fund is really important. So like I said, budgeting is number one, but the more you can do to kind of match those two numbers up with a little extra to put into that emergency fund is really one of the most important things people can do to be financially healthy and to avoid having to use credit, which, then you have to pay the interest, and that adds up over time.
It starts out with knowing how much you make. Makes perfect sense. First, you have to look at your paycheck, see what your gross income is, but you need to take a look at what your net income is.
Absolutely.
Right? Everything that's after tax. Yep. So then it's after that where you would suggest taking a percentage and putting it into something like a savings account, I assume, right?
Yep, just like a savings account. The thing with an emergency fund is you need to have access to those funds. It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because you want to put it into something where you're not looking at it all the time and saying, oh my gosh, I have all this money saved up. But at the same time, you need to have easy access to it. So when your car breaks down or something like that happens, you have easy access to those funds. You can take care of it if you need to.
So of course, everyone's paycheck is different.
Right.
So is there a percentage that you recommend that people save and put towards a savings account?
Yeah, so I always say for your emergency fund, so there's a couple different things that people are saving for. So number one, for the emergency fund, we always suggest to have at a minimum 3 months of your non-discretionary expenses. That means things like, again, your rent, your transportation expenses, those types of things, into a savings account. So figure out what that number is for you, and then work towards, over time, getting that amount of money. So at a minimum 3 months. Some people say, I've got professionals that say 6 months. That can be a little bit too much. So that's your number one thing for saving. So figure out what that number is and then work that out over time, how you get there. Number two is, what are people saving for is the question. So retirement is something that all of us kind of have in mind in the long run. So for people that are lucky enough to work for an employer that has a retirement program, like a 401k, oftentimes they have a match percentage, right? So you contribute a certain amount and they'll match you up to a certain point. So for example, if your employer matches you 3% on the up to 3% of your pay, you want to make sure that you're putting that 3% in, because otherwise you're not actually getting all your full compensation from your employer. So that's something to look at. As far as what should people be saving, that's where it gets a little more complicated. It all depends on, what you want your retirement to look like, and how much money you want to put into that.
Okay.
That's where working with someone like me is pretty useful, because we can actually run the projections are based off of what is the world, what is the world you want to live in when you retire, if you get to that point. We can help you with that, kind of figuring out what is the number then you have to put aside.
Okay, so for people watching that have maybe bad credit, that have maxed out credit cards, that have made every wrong choice with their
Yep.
finances, even for the ones that are maybe in a different group where they're like, I just have trouble saving. What do you say to those people where they may think, or they might know, that saving just is like out of the cards for them? Like, what do you tell those people?
I would say, you need to look at, take an inventory. What are all your debts? What are all those different debts? What are the credit cards? What are all the credit cards that I have out there? What are the amounts that are due on them? What is the interest rate that's being charged on those? And a little tip we always tell our clients, that if you have a lot of, say, credit card debt or other debt, and it's kind of a psychological thing. It's find the lowest balance account that you have and work to pay that one down first. The reason for that is it's psychological. So it's easier to pay that down because the balance is so much less. And once you actually pay it off.
I just did that. I did that exact thing last week. I paid off my smallest card, and it was like the best feeling ever.
It makes you feel good, right? And, and that kind of goes contrary to what some people say, right? In that they're like, oh gosh, the highest interest is always number one. Sometimes you have to make those little wins for yourself, because otherwise it's hard. It feels really bad, and it's a really hard mountain to overcome. Yeah.
So have you ever had an encounter with any of your clients, or maybe you heard from a friend that has a client where this sort of situation happened, where it was like, client, you need to get rid of this because you're not saving enough money and this is ruining you?
Yeah. So in a genteel kind of way, no, we do run into situations where clients are in difficult situations, right? So, and there are times when I'm working with a client, they're actually working through someone's entire financial plan, kind of life cycle financial planning type of stuff. There are times when I'm like, if you identify something as a goal, you might have to make a change in order to attain that goal. It's similar to like on your workout plan. It's like, all right, if I want to have those 6-pack abs, I can't always have the ice cream. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those situations, or at least moderating that in a way that it works out. So that's something, I think you have to understand that it's pretty rare that somebody can achieve all of their financial goals, particularly all at the same time. So sometimes you do have to make some choices about what are the things I can do and what are the things I can't do, based off my situation, or realize that it's going to take you some time to get there.
Yeah, now that I've moved away from downtown, I'm used to leaving the gym and going to like meet up with friends for happy hour, going to one of my favorite restaurants, grabbing a burger. And now I get in my car and I drive back down to where I'm living now, which is not, it's not as conveniently located as like what it was before. And it like rips my heart out every time that I leave, because it's like, what am I missing? And the FOMO kicks in.
Exactly.
So how do we stick to that? It comes down to dedication, but give us some tips.
I honestly don't know how you check your FOMO, because I struggle with that just like everybody else does. But I would say, how do you do it? Number one is just taking that time to actually really identify, where do I want to be? Because goal setting is really important in every part of your life. So figuring out what are my long-term goals, and then, like I said, doing that homework, sitting down, figuring out what is my budget, what do I have going in, what's going out, and figuring out if your current path is actually going to get you there or not, and then making some choices on that.
So has there ever been a moment in your life where you screwed up, learned from it, and it kind of redefined the way that you just budget, invest, plan for your future, so you've walked the walk and now you can talk the talk with your clients?
I would say that, for myself, I know that one thing I wish I would have done, and this is something that I think pretty much everyone can probably relate to, is I wish I would have saved actually more money when I was younger. Because now I'm in my mid-30s at this point.
Well, what were you doing when you were younger? Because
I was out there doing FOMO things, right? So, but I wish I would have actually, taken the time to do do exactly what I'm saying right now, which is to go back, really work through my budget and make sure I'm putting the money aside for my emergency fund, make sure I'm throwing some money into my investment account, my 401ks, things like that. Those are the things I wish I would have done. And I always tell people, they're like, if you're, a little bit older, longer line in your financial life, just because you didn't do all the things exactly right way back in the day, does not mean you can't come back from that. But it does take a little bit of hard work of actually, taking a look at where you're at, where you want to be, and then figuring out what are the steps I need to do to get there. And that's, and I will say, plug on that, it's really fun to work then with a financial coach, which is kind of what we call ourselves. We don't call ourselves financial planners, because they can actually put you on the right path and say, these are the tips you can take. These are the steps you can take and the tips you can use in order to get to where you want to go. I think then it's just putting into place and sticking with it. And, and sometimes one thing I've found with, just like sometimes it's good to have a workout buddy or a fitness buddy, it actually is good sometimes to have, it could be your partner, it could be, your spouse, it could be a friend of yours that, you guys sit down and maybe hold each other accountable. Say, hey, I know we're both working through this goal of trying to have more savings. Oh, we're both working through this goal of trying to pay down our debt. Hey, why don't we just have, pizza and wine night at my place versus going out to so-and-so, going out to Black Sheep Pizza, and then going out for drinks after that. So it's finding someone that can work with you to kind of hold you accountable. It actually works pretty well. I have my accountability person on my budget. So it's something that we just discuss it on a regular basis and see where we're at.
It's a great idea. Someone that holds you accountable. They totally get it. That you can be completely open and honest with what you're making, what you're spending. So you're supporting and rooting for one another. I think it's a great idea.
Exactly. I think that is something that, people I know a lot of people grew up in families that just didn't talk about money, right? I think that's pretty common. I think that it is important to talk about money, particularly because we don't get a lot of financial education, right? So growing up from school or from work or any of these different places. And back to the point talking about millennials in particular, we don't get a ton of, finance education. What does it mean to apply for a loan? What does it mean to have a credit card? What does a mortgage look like? You know what I mean?
Well, thank you very much. That helps a ton. And I'm definitely going to put my to-do list, these notes, if you can't totally see it on there, but I swear I took them. And thank you for helping just give me some direction and giving the viewers direction as well. So that is it for this episode of The Point, guys. If you have any questions, be sure to comment below or hit me up through Instagram. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And Justin, thanks so much for joining today.
Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.
All right, see you guys. So guys, what do you think about Justin's suggestion on getting a financial fitness buddy, kind of like a workout buddy, to hold you accountable every single week? What do you think about paying off small cards before you get to the big credit cards? What tips and tricks do you have for us? Comment below and let us know your thoughts. We'll see you next time on another episode of The Point. I'm JR. Later, guys.